It's human nature to stop and stare at anyone who's different. It's not a particularly admirable part of human nature, but it exists nonetheless. Carnival sideshows and freak shows have long placed the unusual and malformed on display. While some have argued that at least these shows offered individuals a way to earn a living, for others, it was a heartbreaking chapter in an already sorrowful life. So join us as we explore 15 real-life circus freaks that actually existed. Number 15. Frances O'Connor. Frances O'Connor was born without arms, but that didn't stop her from mastering everyday tasks with her feet and doing them better than most. She was born in the early 20th century and grew up learning to eat, drink, sew, write, and even shoot using only her toes. At age 15, she joined the Ringling Brothers Circus, where she performed regularly while living with her mother, who also served as her manager. Her act included her doing seemingly simple things, writing letters, eating meals, or pouring drinks, with elegance and control, astonishing audiences who had never seen such foot dexterity. If you were lucky, you might catch her aiming and firing a pistol with her toes, something most couldn't do with their hands. Frances didn't ask for sympathy. She worked with precision and professionalism. Her career spanned decades, and she became one of the most admired sideshow performers in history. She turned what others saw as a disability into a form of skillful performance and quiet mastery. She was a legend. Number 14. Zip the Pinhead. William Henry Johnson, better known as Zip the Pinhead, became one of Barnum's most peculiar and enduring attractions. Though his body developed normally, his head was unusually small and tapered to a point. As a child, his parents were paid by Van Emberg's Circus in Somerville, New Jersey, to display him as a so-called wild Negro boy, supposedly captured in Africa. This degrading fiction drew attention until P.T. Barnum transformed his image. Barnum gave Johnson a pointed hairstyle to accentuate his narrow brow, dressed him in a hairy suit, and christened him Zip the Pinhead. Though cruelly marketed, Zip became extraordinarily popular, performing for over 67 years. Barnum's publicity made him one of the most recognized circus performers of his era, drawing audiences estimated in the millions. His career spanned generations, making him both a symbol of exploitation and showmanship. At his death, his reported last words reflected on his strange career. "Well, we fooled him for a long time, didn't we?" Number 13. Emmett Kelly. Emmett Kelly's legacy was his creation of Weary Willie, the downtrodden tramp clown who became one of the most beloved figures in circus history. Unlike the flashy clowns of his time, she chose a subdued human style. Dressed in tattered clothes with a weary face, he embodied the struggles of Depression-era America, offering humor rooted in pathos rather than spectacle. His most famous routine involved attempting to sweep a spotlight into a dustpan, a simple but poignant act that captured audiences with both laughter and sympathy. From 1942 to 1956, Kelly performed with the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, redefining the role of a clown and proving comedy could be understated yet powerful. His work bridged slapstick and subtlety, making him one of the most respected performers in the circus world. Kelly lived to the age of 80, died from a heart attack in Sarasota, the longtime winter home of the Ringling Circus. Number 12. The Wild Men of Borneo. The Wild Men of Borneo were actually twin brothers, midgets with intellectual disabilities, who entered the sideshow world in 1852. With little hope of traditional employment, they were taken in by Lyman Warner, who purchased them from their mother at the age of 26. Under Warner's control and guided by P.T. Barnum, they were trained in a peculiar act that combined acrobatics, dancing, gibberish, presented as a foreign tongue, and poetry recited in English. Their fabricated image as exotic wild men thrilled curious circus audiences and guaranteed them steady work for decades. The brothers remained with the Warner family for 3 generations, essentially bound in servitude, and performed for nearly 50 years. Though exploitation defined their careers, the twins became enduring figures of the sideshow era, remembered for their bizarre billing rather than their true identities. Their story reflects both the unrelenting demand for spectacle and the darker exploitation often hidden beneath the glittering facade of the circus world. Number 11. Flying Walendas. Way back in 1922, Carl Walenda created a troupe called the Great Walendas, performing breathtaking stunts like building a 4-man pyramid and riding bicycles across a tightrope suspended high above the ground. Their daring style caught the eye of John Ringling during a performance in Cuba, leading to an invitation to join the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. Their U.S. debut came at Madison Square Garden in 1928, where they performed without a safety net after it had been misplaced in transit. Audiences were enthralled, but their act was never without danger. During a show in Akron, Ohio, the group tumbled from the wire, but miraculously avoided injury. A reporter described the fall, remarking, "The Walendas fell so gracefully it seemed as if they were flying," inspiring the name Flying Walendas. Their fame endured for decades, though tragedy struck on March 22, 1978, when Carl Walenda, then 73, fell to his death in San Juan, Puerto Rico, while performing his signature high wire act. Number 10. The Puppet Woman. Lucia Zarate was extraordinary from birth, arriving in 1864 in Mexico at just 7 inches tall and weighing only 8 ounces. Known as the smallest human ever recorded, she never grew beyond the size of a cat, even in adulthood. Despite her fragile stature, Zarate became a celebrated attraction, her uniqueness drawing fascinated crowds wherever she went. At age 12, she traveled to America, quickly becoming the highest-paid dwarf of her era, earning as much as $20 an hour, a remarkable wage at the time. While promoted as the Puppet Woman, her fame came at the cost of constant display, as she was paraded before audiences who marveled at her delicate frame. Sadly, her short life ended tragically. In 1890, while traveling by train through the Rocky Mountains, a snowstorm trapped the rail cars. Exposed to the brutal cold, Zarate succumbed at just 26 years old. Her life, while extraordinary, remains a sobering reminder of how human difference was commodified under the circus spotlight. Number 9. Maximo and Bartola. Maximo and Bartola, aka the Aztec Children, began their sideshow careers in 1849 in New York. Marketed as descendants of an extinct Aztec tribe, they performed in elaborate costumes, with their appearance compared to ancient portraits and drawings. Their supposed lineage fascinated both American and European audiences, and they were exhibited for decades, even hosted by President Millard Fillmore. In reality, the siblings were born in El Salvador and suffered from microcephaly, a condition marked by abnormally small heads, developmental challenges, and dwarfism. Rather than receiving treatment, they were exploited. Their parents were convinced by a man named Morris, who promised a cure, but instead sold them into a life of performance. For more than 60 years, they were displayed, sold, and resold across circuses and sideshows. In 1867, despite once being billed as siblings, they were officially married. Maximo died in 1913, but Bartola's fate remains unknown, leaving their story both tragic and unfinished. Number 8. Chang and Eng Bunker. The phrase Siamese twins originated with Chang and Eng, conjoined brothers born in Siam in 1811. Joined at the chest by a small band of cartilage, their livers were fused, but otherwise they were complete individuals. In modern times, a simple surgery could have separated them, but in their era, such possibilities were non-existent. As boys, Scottish merchant paid their parents to take them abroad, where they toured the world as public spectacles. In later life, Eng remained fairly healthy, but Chang's health declined in 1870, worsened by heavy drinking. When Chang developed severe bronchitis, he feared the end was near for both. In 1874, Eng awoke to find his brother dead beside him and desperately begged for surgery to separate them. None came in time, and Eng died just 3 hours later. Their remarkable shared journey ended at age 62, cementing their names in medical history and public imagination alike. What do you think about these bros? Number 7. Annie Jones. Annie Jones was born in 1865 with soft hair already covering her chin, a sight that alarmed her parents. By age 5, she had developed a full mustache and thick sideburns. Her mother allowed her to join the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, and they moved to New York. Exhibited as the infant Esau, meaning the infant Harry in Hebrew, Annie quickly became one of Barnum's most recognizable performers. Her career, however, was nearly derailed when she was kidnapped as a child by a phrenologist determined to display her privately. Annie was eventually discovered at a church fair in upstate New York and reunited with her mother. Despite her unusual appearance, she grew into a celebrated figure of the sideshow world, admired for her poise as much as her facial hair. Tragically, Annie's life was short. She fell gravely ill and died at only 37, leaving behind one of the more poignant sideshow legacies. Number 6. Jojo, the dog-faced boy. Fedor, known as Jojo the dog-faced boy, inherited both his unusual appearance and a difficult legacy from his father, Adrian. Adrian, himself affected by hypertrichosis, lived ostracized on society's margins, often performing in sideshows under the grotesque billing of being born from a bear and a woman. Bitter and heavy drinking, Adrian eventually drank himself to death. His son Fedor, equally covered in hair, entered the same world of spectacle, but under the management of P.T. Barnum, who turned him into a star attraction. Billed as the dog-faced boy, Fedor entertained audiences by barking and growling like a trained animal, though he was far more than his stage persona suggested. In truth, he spoke multiple languages, including Russian, German, and English, showcasing remarkable intelligence and adaptability. His condition, hypertrichosis, was rare and striking, but it was Barnum's marketing flair that cemented Fedor's fame. Jojo became one of the most enduring faces of sideshow history. Number 5. General Tom Thumb. In 1842, P.T. Barnum found 4-year-old Charles Stratton, a dwarf who would soon achieve worldwide fame as General Tom Thumb. Standing 25 inches tall, Stratton delighted audiences by impersonating figures such as Cupid and Napoleon Bonaparte, while also singing, dancing, and acting in skits. He toured the United States before Barnum brought him to Europe in 1844, where he captivated royalty, even performing twice for Queen Victoria. His celebrity grew rapidly, but it was his 1863 marriage to Lavinia Warren, another performer only 2 feet 8 inches tall, that made headlines around the world. By adulthood, Stratton had reached a height of 2 feet 11 inches, and Barnum capitalized on the marriage by charging $75 per ticket to the wedding, attended by 2,000 guests, including politicians, generals, and millionaires. During their honeymoon, the newlyweds were honored at the White House by Abraham Lincoln and his wife. General Tom Thumb remains one of the most iconic performers ever associated with Barnum's circus empire. Number 4. Miran Dejo. Miran, born in the Netherlands, became famous as the invulnerable man, seemingly able to endure piercing wounds without injury. Until his early 30s, he lived quietly and worked as a designer. Then came unsettling dreams, after which he declared his body indestructible and abandoned his career. Touring bars and small venues, he allowed swords, blades, and sharp rods to pierce his torso, emerging unharmed. He also swallowed glass and razor blades, baffling audiences. Dejo claimed divine purpose, believing God had chosen him to demonstrate the existence of higher forces and to warn people against materialism. While many viewed him as a miracle, others saw dangerous self-delusion. In 1948, determined to prove his faith, he swallowed a steel needle that had to be surgically removed. 10 days later, he died of an aortic rupture at only 35. Number 3. Frank Lentini. Frank Lentini, born in Sicily in 1889, carried the permanent reminder of a partially absorbed twin, a third leg, a second pelvis, duplicated genitalia, and a small extra foot protruding from his knee. His midwife reportedly fled in terror at his birth. Childhood was difficult, as surgeons refused to remove the third leg, fearing complications. Struggling with despair, Frank's perspective shifted after visiting an institution for disabled children, where he realized others suffered far worse. He later remarked, "From that time to this, I've never complained. I think life is beautiful, and I enjoy living it." Embracing his condition, Frank joined the circus and toured extensively, performing with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. Unlike many exploited performers, he earned respect and dignity among peers, who hailed him as the king. His positivity, combined with remarkable showmanship, transformed him into one of the most admired figures in sideshow history, remembered not just for his limbs, but his resilient spirit. Number 2. Daisy and Violet Hilton. British performers. Daisy and Violet Hilton were conjoined twins who captivated audiences until they died in 1969. Their obituary read, "They led a hummingbird's life, color and glitter and always on the move." For a time, they knew glamour and wealth, but both preceded them in death. Yet their earlier years were far from dazzling. They began touring Britain at just 3 years old. After their guardian, Mary Hilton, died, custody passed to Mary's daughter, Edith, and her husband. Under their care, the girls were regularly abused, beaten whenever they disobeyed orders. Despite drawing massive crowds, they never received any share of their profits. Eventually, they broke free and filed a lawsuit against their former handlers, demanding $100,000 in damages. From there, they continued performing in burlesque shows for much of their lives. The twins passed away just 4 days apart, side by side, at age 60, inseparable in both life and death. Number 1. James Morris, the Rubber Man. James Morris, known as the Rubber Man, was one of the most impressive contortionists of his time. Competing for the spotlight with Felix Wehrle, Morris dazzled audiences with the incredible range and control of his body. He could bend his limbs in ways that defied anatomical norms, twisting arms and legs into impossible angles without showing pain. His movements gave the impression that his bones were made of rubber. Morris toured extensively with Ringling Brothers, where his performances became highlights of the show. Crowds gathered in fascination, watching his limbs knot and coil with fluid precision. Specialists speculated that he, like Felix, likely had a form of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which gave him unusually elastic skin and hypermobile joints. But Morris was more than a medical anomaly. He was a performer with unmatched physical command. His acts weren't about shock, they were demonstrations of discipline, skill, and the outer edge of what the human body could truly accomplish. If you found this video interesting, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.